Moving on, viewers, the conventional take on Trump's decision to impose tariffs on India from April 2 is that our nation is staring at a crisis. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal is visiting Washington to resolve tricky trade issues and kickstart talks on a proposed bilateral trade agreement. But there aren't many days till April 2nd deadline to conclude a deal, after which, of course, the reciprocal tariffs kick in. Things will change. As we all know, Trump has been prompted to do this to level the bilateral trade playing field, and you can see on your screens the differences on different products between the taxes that we charge and the Americans charge, leaving a differential sometimes of 57%, for example, on beverages and tobacco, etc. Now, there's no denying that the new tariff regime is a cause for concern when it kicks in on April 2nd. A report by Citi Research estimates that India could lose around $7 billion annually due to these tariffs, according to Devendra Kumar Pant, chief economist at INRA. The new tariffs could reduce India's GDP growth by 5 to 10 basis points from the current estimate of about 6.6%. The most affected industries would be chemicals, metal products and jewelry, followed by automobile, pharmaceuticals and, of course, food products. But viewers, there's a breakup on your screens of how vulnerable some of these elements are, really. These products are to tariff fluctuations and reciprocal tariffs. So if we charge 20% on a particular tariff, and the US is only charging at this moment 7%, they could actually hike that and make it equal, or vice versa. But it isn't as if Trump's America is not going to sweat. In fact, many believe that the US president is playing with fire and that he can sustain the fight only for that much time. So what should India do? Wait for Trump to burn his fingers and come to his senses, or take some proactive steps to insulate itself? Let's ask our experts this evening, and we have a great panel. And I want to begin with Mr. Brahma Cheleni first. Mr. Cheleni, how do you view this conversation that is going to take place behind the scenes? Do you think Trump is going to walk the talk to the point where it might also begin to hurt America? Or do you think he'll back off because there are just too many fronts that he's open right now?
I don't think he'll back off because his mission is clear. He wants to cut America's mammoth trade deficit. It's the largest in the world. He wants to slash America's huge fiscal deficit, which now is close to $2 trillion a year.
Yeah.
So he will take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, as he has done with Canada and Mexico, to exert pressure on them. But he has not withdrawn the second round of 10% tariffs on China, which indicates that as far as China is concerned, he is going to try and contain China economically and strategically. In fact, it's very clear that this Trump administration is going to pivot from Europe to the Indo-Pacific region, which makes India a central player in the Indo-Pacific strategy. So he will exert pressure on India because he would like to try to get as much as he can get from India. And he knows that India is vulnerable to US pressure. And we've already seen in last month's oil imports, India has substantially increased imports of oil and petroleum products from the US to help placate the White House. But I think the bigger point is this. India has run a huge trade deficit with China that has partly offset by running a large trade surplus with the United States. But with Trump intent on closing all of America's bilateral trade deficits, India might finally resort to raising tariffs on imports from China. And we have to also keep in mind one other thing. While whatever reciprocal tariffs are going to be slapped on India at the beginning of April, India is in a much better position than Canada or Mexico, because India is a largely domestically oriented economy that relies on domestic consumption, not exports for growth. So while the tariffs are going to be an additional burden on the Indian economy, we should not forget that the main items in the US-India trade are hydrocarbons, military equipment, and gems.
And gems, yes. That's what we put up.
And hydrocarbons carry nominal tariffs.
Okay. Okay. So let's open this up. And talk a little bit about how we can negotiate this. If Trump is not going to take 5 or 6 steps back and take only 1 or 2 back, Ajay Srivastav, Chief of Global Trade Research Institute, the GTRI, how do we deal with this? This is not obviously a person who is going to be reasonable beyond a point. So what do we do? Do we stand up to him, back down, make a few concessions, cut our losses?
Rahul, I'm very clear about how India should proceed at this moment. We have many FTAs with ASEAN, Japan, Korea, Australia, Switzerland, etc., wherein 90% of the industrial goods, they already come to India at zero tariffs. We should apply a small check for US sensitivity and offer before April 2 a list to the US. These are industrial products, 90% of them. We propose zero tariffs from day one, provided you do the same to us. We do that list. There is no need for any negotiations. And we should keep out agriculture tariffs from this. And I say 90% of the industrial good, which means we have not given any concession on auto sector to anyone so far. So no auto sector concessions for them, no agriculture for US, but 90%. That will account for more than 90% of India-US trade. I think that will be a big victory from our side if we approach them with this list in next 1 week or 2 weeks.
Okay, but Ajay Bagga, will that have implications? Because obviously with tariffs come resource, income, etc., etc. So if we make this sort of concession at some levels, what will be the damage? What will be the hit? Do you have a number?
Number-wise, Rahul, what is giving comfort to India that we are number 11th in terms of a trade deficit with the US. And if you see, they are methodically going. Who's the largest trade deficit? First is Mexico, second is China, third is Canada. For India, our trade with US is about 2% of our GDP. Yeah. For Mexico and Canada, it is like 23% and 19%. Again, for China, it's a small part of their GDP. So that gives some, some comfort to India.
But then why are people like Citi Research estimating that it could be a $7 billion hit annually due to these tariffs? And there are others who have put a number at, could reduce India's GDP growth by about 5 to 10 basis points. Where are these numbers coming from? And are they accurate?
Again, these are guesstimates. See, with Trump and why the markets are going mad, Rahul, because by the morning the guy signs something, by the evening he's changed the goalpost, and before the night he's taken some other position, and then his sons are taking positions in the market along with it. So when he talks of strategic reserves, they are buying bitcoins. So when you have a president who's got a huge trader mentality with him, and there is nothing nothing that has sanctity in this positioning. You see Mexico and Canada, Rahul, for example, 65-75% of the autos that they are sending into the US, already after 2018, they complied with the new, the deal that came post NAFTA. UNSMC. Now, after 2 days of applying tariffs, he's realized the same part, Rahul, travels from Canada, gets a bit of value addition, goes into Mexico. 8 million cars are made and brought back to the US. How many times will you put tariff on that? Mexico retaliated, Canada retaliated. They realized the automobile industry, which is a big chunk of the GDP, will just collapse. If you put this kind of tariffs.
And also,
so now he's gone back.
Trump has a farmer base, and they will have a problem if this reciprocation.
Already grain prices. That's a very good point. Agriculture prices are collapsing. If you remember 2018, what was the EU agreement? Lobsters. Lobster duties were reduced by the EU to please Trump. So that farmer lobby is already hurting now because the grain prices are crashing. The corn prices are crashing. China, which was picking up soybean and corn, is putting retaliatory tariffs. And Canada is going very methodically. Canada is going by all the Republican states and levying, tariffs by state to hurt the Republicans the maximum. Well, like you said, the farmer lobby.
So correct me if I'm wrong, viewers. This is going to come down to personal ego, / political compulsion versus economic pragmatism. How much pain, another P word, can Trump afford to inflict on some of his core bases? Fundamentally, he'll also be looking at that number. And it might be that he'll think that perhaps it's not the pain, worth the pain, to put India into such a corner. Maybe that's going to sort of change equations here. He might have more rigid views with others, but perhaps he might just give us that little opportunity to crack a deal. The art of the deal, viewers, is what he respects. I leave it at this. Let's move on.